Good morning. Actually, good afternoon. I'm sorry it's so overcast today. I've lost my natural timing instinct. And that's good news, though, because the Mid-Atlantic area is finally getting some rain. And from all of you that live in this area, you understand we were down 7 inches of rain this year. So this is a glorious week, and I'm very appreciative. My name is Cindy Brown. I'm the manager of education, collections, and access here at Smithsonian Gardens. And as always, we're thrilled to have you. We're excited today, or at least I'm excited today, to be able to bring to you a speaker on a subject that's near and dear to my heart. We did a exhibit several years ago, and we're working on another one on the same topic all about biophilia and how important plants are and being in nature is to humans. And one part of that is the effect that plants do have on us and working with plants. So you're going to learn more about that today from our speaker. As always, please put your questions in the chat box, and I'll be glad to share them with our speaker at the end of her presentation. We will stop as close to one as we can get. Last couple ones, we've gone over a couple minutes, and it's a little bit different for me, but I appreciate what the speakers have to share with us. And so I'm always welcome to let them finish their topics as they're discussing. So today, it's going to be all about horticultural therapy and all about Irene Brady Barber, who is from Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. I haven't been there yet, but I'm gonna get there. I hope you will be engaged by the topic and engaged with the images that Irene is going to share, because it is an outstanding garden. So Irene, thank you for joining us. And I am looking forward to hear what you have to tell us on this subject. As always, Zach will put information in our chat box so that you can find out more of the resources that are available on this topic. And again, put your questions in there. But Irene, if you will take it away and share this wonderful information with us, I'll be back at about 5 to 1 to be able to actually, I'll be back at 12:45 to be able to ask some questions from our audience. All right, I'll see you now.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Zach, for monitoring the chat box. I'm beyond honored to be a part of this Let's Talk Garden series for the Smithsonian Gardens and Institute. It is a wonderful opportunity to share with probably people who are not even from New England or maybe even familiar with Maine at all yet, but hopefully this will inspire you to come to Maine, and that this talk will also inspire you to think maybe a little bit more about horticultural therapy and how it could be possibly part of your life going forward in your gardening practices. So horticultural therapy is something that is near and dear to my heart. And I didn't really discover it until I had been gardening for, I'd say maybe 15 years. And then professionally speaking, and then I was in a garden center or a florist one time, and a woman came in, and as you probably could imagine, in the wintertime in Maine, we have it dark and it's kind of cold. And she came into the florist where I was working, and she said, "I don't have any money. I just want to be around the plants. Is that okay?" And I said, of course, you know. And so just that understanding and that fundamental connection to plants made me think there has to be more than just, you know, the concept of gardening for the beauty of it, but gardening for the personal connection that we have towards plants. And so I typed it in Google, and there I found horticultural therapy. This is a little bit beyond, you know, what some people refer to as garden therapy or planting for well-being, and I'll get into some of that detail further. So I became a registered horticultural therapist, And that took a few years of professional training through a program called the Horticultural Therapy Institute, also known as HTI. And it's a wonderful organization out of Colorado. And they have remote training as well as virtual training. So if you want to be in person, you can do it in their remote locations throughout the country. They travel West Coast and Central Coast and East Coast. And then, so I pursued that as well as taking more psychology classes, but I have a degree in communications with a minor in human behavior. So I already had that educational background plus a degree in horticulture as well. So it really gave me that jump start to getting into uh, the method or the opportunity of doing horticultural therapy without having to start anew. But a lot of people do start completely from scratch, and it just takes a little bit longer. But horticultural therapy is really a complementary opportunity for people who are in gardening or who are in other therapeutic practices, such as occupational therapy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I've been working at the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens going into my 14th year. And I started as a intern piloting this program in 2010. And the garden for which you are looking through the archway at was designed and built in 2009. So it's a relatively young garden. And in this image in particular, it is only about maybe 3 or 4 years young at this stage of the photo. So now we're, about 15 years into its development, and it's doing marvelous. It's really a beautiful garden that so many people really appreciate. And so coming into gardening, first off, there's just so many fundamentals about why we love gardening. There is the innate connection that we have to nature. So it connects humans to nature and the innate need for survival. Basically, from foraging to then growing our own food is something that is built inside of our modus operandus in life in general. We have become more detached from that, obviously, with all of our creature comforts and conveniences of microwaves and really deluxe ovens and to-go meals, etc. But honestly, when you start to grow your own plants, you really have a deeper and newly founded reconnection to food and to plants. Gardening, when done mindfully, is therapeutic. I've heard a number of times where people will say, "Oh, my back aches. I can't garden anymore." But there are opportunities of making gardening effective and healthy for you once again. It does take some design and consideration, but when it is done properly for your personal integrity and abilities, it can actually extend your vitality, your vibrance, your light within you. Gardening does make us slow down as well, particularly when you're doing it, again, properly. This is not something to do with laying mulch out in a fast and ferocious way. It's really about tending to the plants and nurturing plants. Instead of seeing it as maintaining plants, it is a chance to nurture the plants. And then in turn, nurtures us. And in essence, it just feels really good to grow something that relies on you. So when it's done successfully, upon your attendance to it, it's just really rewarding. Of course, it's not you alone that will require the plants or that the plants will require. It will be also sunlight and water and nutrients and biology in the soils, etc. So with a perfect formula, it does work out. And that's where, some people say, "Oh, I have the brownest of thumbs." Well, it is a matter of starting with the right plant and understanding how you can train yourself as a gardener. And in that process, you're providing a therapeutic approach because you're going through that mindful consideration and realizing your abilities and your potential. By the way, the picture in the back here, I just wanted to emphasize, I had just taken this photo, and this is under that larch arch, and this is one of our native meadow ruse, and the aroma is just intoxicating. It has this sweet jasmine fragrance, and then just below that is the cinnamon sweet flavor or aroma of dianthus, aka cheddar pinks. And then those fans of blades are variegated iris, Iris pallida, and the flower is this light blue, big kind of bearded iris blossom, and then the perfume of grape juice. So it's just quite enjoyable to walk through this little archway and get a blast of all those aromas. So horticultural therapy. This is a bit of the biggest text that you'll see in my whole presentation. It is helpful for people to read through this as I talk, perhaps. But it's all about, on the left-hand side, we're going to be talking about the foundation of horticultural therapy, the overall umbrella concept of it. And then to the right is kind of disseminating it from a few versions of what horticultural therapy consists of. So growing plants, that's what it's about, being with plants and creating plant-based products or crafts. So similar to that of music therapy or art therapy or equine therapy or even pet therapy, there are these complementary or alternative modalities to our traditional therapies. And those therapies are really effective. Now, horticultural therapy is indeed just as effective, if not maybe as a little biased, perhaps even more, because we're engaging all of our available senses in the practice of nurturing plants. So whether it's creating a plant activity or actually growing a plant, or creating a plant, craft, or doing, vegetable gardening or herb gardening or so forth, there is that reality of utilizing all of your abilities of any dexterity, hand-eye coordination, um, communication skills, and the sensory experience of that tactile process is just really invigorating to our cognitive activity. So in general, horticultural therapy inspires also unity amongst people. It brings people from all walks of life and all areas of the world together. It's like one of the most favored activities as a hobby, as well as it being as for survival. So important that obviously creates unity for everybody. It builds opportunity or inspires opportunity. It creates self-initiative for individuals, so taking on the chance to grow a plant instead of it being given to you and then already grown, but builds that chance for you to have ownership and pride and accountability. It inspires personal vibrance, growth, and confidence. Yes, you did that. That's amazing. And they didn't have the support. Somebody may not have had the support to grow it. Maybe they had initial assistance, but then on the other end, they did it by themselves. Horticultural therapy supports and enables resilience. So when we see that a plant may fail or a plant may decline, there is a chance where there's a rebirth with those plants by propagation or seed collection, or maybe just giving it some water, and that's all it needed was it was dehydrated. And so you see the resilience coming to life right before you. Sometimes a little more long-term than immediate as well. It supports positive emotional release. So particularly with people who have experienced trauma in their life or have an ongoing challenge, emotional distress of some sort, the outlet of horticultural therapy encourages the positive way of working through those emotions. And there's just so many metaphors when you're doing horticultural therapy that there's a chance to get out of your own head and feel like you're offering something else to a living, perishable being. Um, Gardening, horticultural therapy promotes and supports stress reduction, a positive outlook overall. So when you come in as maybe negative Nelly, we really hope you leave with a positive outlook and a new chance to achieve greater things again. It supports and promotes physical activity and engagement, cognitive activity, as I've mentioned before, particularly with people who may have dementia or Alzheimer's, or they have intellectual disability diagnoses. It really works to invigorate and stimulate cognitive activity. And it's used towards supporting or promoting rehabilitation and recovery from numerous personal events and challenges. The umbrella organization that really parents or supports all of these concepts and practices is the American Horticultural Therapy Association. And that was established, gosh, I hate to say this, I'm sometimes really bad at my history, but I believe it was established during World War II, although there were essences of horticultural therapy being practiced in World War I as well, particularly from Great Britain. But then in the United States, we adopted it after World War II. And then the AHTA really formulated much more strongly in the 60s and 70s. Now, so those are some of the general concepts of what horticultural therapy can achieve and embraces. But then there's the horticultural therapy clinical treatment that is designed and administered and documented and carried out by a registered horticultural therapist. I apologize, I missed the word therapist at the end of that sentence. So you'll definitely want to consider that horticultural therapy, if in fact you want to create a true documented treatment plan, there must be in fact an HTR, as they are termed, that works alongside perhaps a CBT, a cognitive behavioral therapist, or a social worker of some sort, so that you can really achieve the ultimate goal. Because in fact, you really do need to have some horticulture understanding and the safety of those plants, knowing what's toxic, what's not toxic, or what plants are going to be really most effective for the recovery or rehabilitation or goal concept happening. Then there's therapeutic horticulture, which is really beneficial. It uses plant-based activities for overall personal well-being. However, there is no clinical treatment plan or documentation applied. Yet it's also still important and elemental, as I said, that a trained HT is still involved in a designed session in order to really get the true fulfillment of therapeutic horticulture. Therapeutic horticulture is also sometimes referred or utilized in vocational horticulture programs. So in schools where students are perhaps not in the generalized curriculum or the mainstream curriculum, but they're in alternative education or vocational education, they can utilize horticulture lessons to identify basic learning skills and learning lessons. And then in general, horticultural therapy is, as I said, can be useful for complementary modalities to other traditional therapies, such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy, etc. So that's as technical as I'll probably get. There's probably some more, that you may want to ask along after we've done this presentation. But I love to not get you too lost in the details and keep inspiration alive. So here we're going to explore what what horticultural therapy is within the setting of the Lerner Garden of the Five Senses. And this is a garden that is designed for everyone to enjoy. It's a garden to reconnect people to their senses, which are smell, taste, touch, see, and hear. And we do that review every time a new group comes to the gardens. What are your five senses? because it's so important that we reconnect just to those simple concepts and terms that we take for granted on a daily basis. Um, and in this same space, it's kind of a joke, but I like to identify that mindfulness is required to come into this garden. This is a garden that you do not rush through. You really get yourself engaged and kind of do a reset in your energy and in your attention. So here's an aerial of the main area of our garden campus. We have about 320 acres, and in this snapshot, you'll see about 20 to 30 of those acres cultivated right here. And on the left, where you see the arrow, that is the center area of the Lerner Garden of the Five Senses. We call it the Lerner Garden of the Five Senses because the family of the Lerners donated a significant portion to initiate the construction of this garden. And the garden was designed to have a programmatic experience occur. So it wasn't a garden just for general visitors to pass through, but an actual program space was designed to really bring it to full fruition in life. So in this garden, we have a pavilion, or AKA a post and beam or a timber frame, and it also has a beautiful fanned out pergola. It has the surrounding of a woodland curtain, so lots of conifers and deciduous enveloping the garden. We have elevated garden beds and lots of overlooks. And these overlooks we call our nodes because the main trail is that to conjure up the concept of a stem of a plant, maybe quite a serpentining stem, but with along that stem are nodes, just like in a botanical concept of a plant stem. So these nodes are overlooks or little respite areas for people to really experience an individual sense at a time, although it's pretty much hard to do an individual sense at a time because we're taking so much in at one point. And that garden, by the way, is only about an acre large, but it feels very complex within that acre. So I'm going to show you a few of the features that make this garden quite unique. So here we have some vertical gardens. I'm sure many of you are getting more familiar with vertical gardens and the amazing concepts and structures that vertical gardens are made from now. These are actually made with a boxed-in cell. There are individual boxed-in cells, and those cells are made out of lobster trap wire. So it has a nice regional sense of belonging and relevance to our area, being that we're in the lobster state. And so we plant out these vertical gardens every year with a new display every year. And we use these vertical gardens for our horticultural therapy programming and also for just the general visitors to be inspired and to think about what concepts that they can include or what kind of designs that they can include in their perhaps urban or suburban areas where they want to close down sound or create a beautiful cooling wall, because as we know, plants, when they are elevated, they will also help cool down the temperatures. So green roofs and walls on the same foundation of that. And so we put in edibles, we put in succulents, we put in a lot of plants that are going to be very effective for sensory enjoyment. And this is the side of the wall that's in shade. So I like to design a new design each year, something with a little bit of a geometric image to it, see if people notice that, etc., especially when they stand back. But it's a very tactile wall on the shade side in particular. But I love to showcase for people that there is so much that you can grow in the shade that we think is not possible. So as I mentioned, displays change annually. So this garden really teaches people who are also returning visitors annually or maybe every 5 years, but the garden never stays static. And that also teaches our participants in the program that there's always changing processes and there's evolution in a garden. So we have groups who come here for, oh, I've had a group that's been coming here for at least 12 years now. And so they've really seen the garden fill in or change or be edited, etc. and they're part of that change. So we're going through touch right now. So we did some smell as we went through that larch arch, and now we're going through touch. And this is a great chance to not only touch with your hands, but with your feet. So we have this amazing reflexology labyrinth. And if you're not familiar with this, putting your feet along the contour of a very soft and smooth rock surface like you see here allows your foot to follow the contour of that rock, and it stimulates cognitive activity when it presses against these pressure points in your feet. And so it's what it does is it stimulates cognitive activity, but then the design of the labyrinth increases more of a chance for focus and attention, which is very hard to achieve in our day and age. So it doesn't matter if you're a youth or if you're an adult. It seems to be very challenging. So when you're by yourself, it's much easier, but when you're amongst a lot of people, it's a little challenging to actually follow through the whole labyrinth. But the best part to do this is with only your socks or your bare feet, and shoes will definitely inhibit the true effect. So touch with your fingers, we have a raised wall here, a raised garden bed with the creeping thyme that seems to intrigue many visitors. They put their nose up to the flowers thinking it's going to smell really well, and then they see a nice honeybee enjoying the flowers as well. But when they put their hands on it, it just feels like cotton. It's so delightful to the touch. And then we have those welcoming textures of the larch arch as well as you walk through and under and you reach your hand up. Then there's smell, and in our sessions, we really want to talk about these descriptors. We want to identify, hey, how can you describe a plant that you're experiencing? I oftentimes discourage the word beautiful or pretty, but give me a little bit more of a description. Is it sweet? Is it spicy? Is it bright? In the aroma in particular. So we have the sweetness of the chamomile that calms you down, or the spice of the dianthus, and then the bright perfumes perhaps of a peony. We also have a chance to really listen or hear. And we oftentimes think gardens, hearing, sound, what are the elements for that to create that sense of hearing? And it's honestly the simplest thing about wind going through the branches of a plant or a tree. The chattering of the plant seeds when they're dry. I love hearing when baptisia goes to seed and it sounds almost like an instrument where you hear this chatter of the seeds within the shell. Then there's the chimes. You can put in sculptures or statues or some kind of windmobile within your gardens. It doesn't have to be an enormous, elaborate system, but something that will create that sound essence. Then there's even the simplicity of the buzzing bees or the hummingbirds or the dragonflies that go by you, or sometimes even prop on your shoulder if you are friendly enough. So sound is really important within our Garden of the Five Senses. And here are two images where we have a sound stone where this woman puts her head into the hole. It's a little eerie to begin with, but she puts her head in and does this om sound, and it's this echoing vibration. Some people like it. Some people get a little deterred by it. And then we have these two gentlemen who are raking the stone dust, and the sound of raking creates this lovely kind of like gravelly and relaxing essence. Especially when you even just walk on it too, you hear this little sound that under your feet that's kind of a scratching sound, and it just stimulates your essence of sound. And then one moment, please. Okay. And so then we have the meditation area. This is an area where people of all ages really can take a chance to meditate. This is in a shaded area where it's nice and cool. And behind us is the sanctuary, or the security of the trees behind us, as I said, kind of giving you the sense of a womb of having this sense of safety behind you. And within those trees are the birds tweeting and so forth. And so that really um, inspires the attention of that unique feature of the garden. A lot of people feel like they don't hear birds all that often these days, so it's really lovely to hear the birds in the backdrop. And then we hear, as soon as 3 o'clock turns on the clock, we hear tree frogs on a regular basis. And then sometimes we also just like to hear the sounds of people enjoying the gardens. But we take a moment for 5 minutes, and sometimes it depends on the group, but we take a moment of just silence. And it can be challenging, but for the most part, most people are really engaged and um, really take advantage of that chance to be quiet and to listen or to observe, no matter the age. And it happens also after you've gone through the garden that is very stimulating and exciting, and now you have a chance to really reflect and just kind of take in those experiences a little bit more slowly. So then we have the importance of water. So there's sound of water with our water fountain. And this, depending on the height of the fountain, conjures up a reaction that is either energizing or relaxing. And so think about that. If you're going to have a water fountain, do you want it to sound something that is a big splash, or do you want it to have kind of a soft, deep tone that is more like a lapping sound? But in essence, water is not just for sound, but it has this nice cooling effect. It's invigorating and also restorative at the same time. And in this Garden of the Five Senses, we have it somewhat centralized, and it is a feature for which it identifies for people who are visually impaired to walk through the garden, and where it's located and the path meandering around it is designed to have it on the right-hand side as you walk through the garden. So it provides a sense of direction. If you got turned around accidentally as a visually impaired person and you hear the fountain on your left, then you know you're going backwards or in reverse. So these water fountains and this infinity edge particularly allows people to really engage the water right up close and personal. Particularly on a hot day, it's really delightful to run your fingers over that infinity edge. It's, as I said, very accessible. And then you see the water pass under your feet as well into the adjacent pond. So when our participants are here, it's about their abilities. It's not about their disabilities. It's about their potentials and then their triumphs. And these three images identify how there is opportunity within the systems that we've created. So there's an elevated bed with a wheelchair access section. And there's the lightweight trug for which Karen is carrying the cuttings of a large squash that has kind of overwhelmed some of my other plants in the garden, and so she was doing some trimming. And the lightweightness of that trug and then the ease of bringing it over to the compost pile is really effective and enables her to do the gardening without any assistance. And then the woman on the right hand side, she's using the wheelchair a majority of the time, but she was determined to tie up those tomato stems, those tomato branches, and get them as high as possible. And she wanted to be the one to do it. So she was able to get out of her chair, mind over matter in this case. It doesn't work for everybody, but in this case, she was able to do it. Then we have the opportunity of really seeing what it's like to plant something, following it to the nurturing point, and then following it to the actual harvesting point. So the participants are in our program on a continual basis. We try to have them come to our gardens on a weekly or every other week basis, and they come for about 90 minutes for each session. And they are going to be here for either 6 weeks or 12 weeks. And that way they really get to see the garden grow and develop, and they have a hand in all of that process. And we make it work for people who are visually impaired with these tactile devices on potting, on larger pots. And it's a corresponding technique that we do where we match the feature on a plant pot, on a nursery pot, and then find that same feature or that texture on the container garden pot, and then you know it's where that plant, that nursery pot will go into the container garden pot. So they don't necessarily need to know the plant by touch all the time, although we really do encourage that. It is also a chance for them to have some simplicity of tactile devices to support the process. And on the right-hand side, this gentleman is really elemental in helping us nurture the garden through the driest of the seasons, etc. And so he was there from the very beginning when we planted these plants, and now he gets to see it in the full glory. And we, of course, make modifications and adaptations, as I indicated with that container garden. But it's also with tools or with spatial arrangements of the containers or the plants themselves. Particularly when you have a high yielding plant, something that grows and you need to harvest soon in the season, you want that closer to your access than, say, a plant that's like an artichoke or a corn or a squash that's going to take a little longer to yield its fruit, and you put that in the harder to reach perhaps, or the area where it's not going to be as high maintenance to be attended to on a regular basis. So in these spaces that I've taken you through, we work towards using horticultural therapy goals through these tasks. And so the tasks may be to water, or the tasks may be to sow seeds. But the ones that I've highlighted here on the left, to be more patient is a goal. Well, how do I do that? What's a task that I can do, that I can implement, that will help that ultimate goal? So cutting off flowers, bundle, and hang dry and fill in sachets for aromatherapy, particularly for lavender. So if you wanted to do a sage or a lavender, you're going to cut off the flowers or the leaves, bundle it, then you hang dry them, and then you fill in the sachets for aromatherapy. And it's a multitask process, and it's going to take perhaps 3 to 4 weeks for it to be done at a completion, at a state of completion to put into the sachets. So in that vein, we have to teach the process of patience, of seeing something through, follow through. Learn how to reduce stress. That's just a general one, a general goal that we work on. Learn how to ask for help. Gosh forbid that we ask for help, right? Build trust in others. This is a big one nowadays, particularly, and especially if you've gone through a traumatic event in your life, trusting in others is really challenging. Well, what kind of activity or task could you do? Well, working in a group, sharing and coordinating with fellow participants to nurture and grow plants. So sharing a goal in mind together with other people, or a task, I should say, with other people will in fact then kind of build this relationship and this opportunity of trust within others. Learn how to organize a space, speak more clearly and enunciate. So as I said, speech therapists oftentimes have used horticultural therapy. And then in this case, the last and bold point is build personal confidence. So what kind of task could that include? Well, working independently after initial instruction and with minimal support to perform the garden tasks. And so as a horticultural therapist, I would check in with that individual as minimally or as necessary as possible, not overbearing or over managing them, but really providing as much of an initial instruction, and that also includes demonstration, joining it with them, etc., on the first time or maybe 3 times, but then thereafter really encouraging them to do it on their own, and then work with them on a step-by-step process if in fact that's necessary. So when you're in the garden of taste, that's what we've been working in most of the time with our horticultural therapy programs. We are harvesting plants like this enormous bok choy, tasting herbs, having some fresh fruits like strawberries, eating the vegetables just out their door in this case, or out their activity space. And they're also going to be cutting and creating floral arrangements. And by doing all these things, they're learning lessons along the way and developing skills, particularly for problem solving. So when you do this, what happens? So you have to work your way through it. From how do you get this plant plug out of a tray and putting it into the garden bed? There is problem solving. There is a process that occurs. Exercises, and in my case, what I see as exercises are seen as activities to most people. So an exercise of making seed paper is seen as a activity because it is fun. It's really fun. It's creative. It doesn't feel like you're going through anything therapeutic in essence. Sowing seeds, it's wonderful to get your fingers into the soil and feel the seeds, and then in a few weeks seeing it germinate, and then in a few weeks after that transplanting it. So transplanting seedlings to the garden or in larger pots is again an opportunity to see how plants really are relying on you in the process of getting them from one stage to another. Planting vertical gardens. This is one of our fun exercises, and we still have to do that this summer. This is an image from a couple of years ago, and it just fascinates people that plants can grow on a vertical setup such as this, and in very consolidated spaces. So you don't have to have enormous, elaborate systems. You can take home these picture frame vertical gardens. And so this is about using the simplest of tools, a bamboo stick, of using your fingers. It's so much about using your fingers and using more of the simple tools rather than feeling like you have to go out there and buy these very elaborate systems of sorts. We do floral design that can be done in a group exercise or as an individual exercise. So identifying individual creativity, individual choices, or working with group dynamics and establishing a means of communicating better with your peers. And floral design is fun for everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, everybody seems to enjoy it, and you don't feel like you're getting anything as therapeutic about it. Tactile exercises. So these are things where the planting process is very tactile. People who have autism spectrum, they really respond very effectively to these tactile exercises, running your hands through the soil or the sand, or touching the plants that are particularly resilient and tolerant of you touching them on a regular basis, rubbing them like lamb's ear, etc. But really getting your hands back into the soil is a very fun process. And then also touching plants to understand how to create more increased vocabulary again, or to reestablish that vocabulary. So with a group who are visually impaired, touching is imperative. In order to explain or describe a feature. So working with these individuals, we were doing a plant tactile exercise. How to identify this plant, or not tell me what the plant is in general, like the name of it, but give me some descriptions of how you would explain this plant to somebody else instead of saying it's pretty or white. Give me the shapes, give me the textures, give me the structure, give me anything, the height of any sorts, the anything that really makes that a unique feature of a plant. So in this space, we are all about making it possible for everybody. And we have this raised bed here. It's called the L veg planter. And it's great it's shaped in a V, and it allows for people with wheelchairs to get closer to the garden plants without bumping their knees into a wall necessarily. And we've had really great response with this planter. So they make them out of cedar. This one is a cedar and an iron structure. So ideal for the opportunity of people for people holding on to this planter for a very long period of time. It's not going to deteriorate in 1 or 2 years. But it's not something that's super costly. It is effective to use in a home environment. So we really try to identify and demonstrate systems that are effective for home gardening. So additional activities, we have the Raking, as I mentioned before, kind of we even talked about it the other day, the zen of raking. We have these ergonomic stools. It gets people to really garden up close and personal to the planters without having to bend over. We have an opportunity for people to be standing and sitting and working on the same project. Planting up container gardens is one of our favorite. We do activities that are about just understanding pressure. Some people don't understand the difference between gentle and hard. So we work on that a little bit within just the exercises that we do with planting. Somebody's never probably used hedge shears before, particularly on a vertical garden. So there's lots of new experiences and opportunities to learn hand-eye coordination. There are chances where we do intergenerational activities, and then this is a chance for also strangers to become friends and teachers with each other or to each other. This is a great chance for people to break down social barriers, and particularly with the generations, and have a common bond of taking care of, in this case, a basil plant. And these individuals never had met each other, and they met each other that day, and it was fantastic. More new experiences, deadheading daylilies. This gentleman who is sight impaired, he had never deadheaded a daylily. He's never even seen a daylily. He's never trimmed a mint plant, and he's trimming a whole wall of mint here. So Arthur had quite the summer that year of lots of new experiences, and out of his reactions were, oh my gosh, I've never experienced this, oh I love this, I want to come back, etc. Harvest time. This is how it can be done. It can be done by doing an ornamental arrangement, such as what we see over on the left-hand pictures, to harvesting Swiss chard. Very mindfully done, may I point out. And then we have in the center image here somebody who can really only use a scooter to get around, and she's using the basket in the front of her scooter to help her gather all of her harvest cuttings for her arrangements that she's going to be making. And then we have this gentleman in a wheelchair to the right who has cerebral palsy, and he's able to use his really strong forearm of his right arm and pull out this lettuce head. We had to work on patience because he wasn't interested in waiting for my directions. He was just really excited to pull out that leaf of lettuce, or that head of lettuce, and thereon showered with soil all over him. But a new chance for him, and he was very pleased with himself. And in that vein, he had to replant that area of the lettuce heads. And so he sowed with his caseworker, and then 2 weeks later, you can see the lineup of his plants. So he's feeling pretty proud right there to see the work that he's put into reseeding. Spreading it out to share. So a lot of this harvest is not just retained by these participants in the group, but they give them to their friends at their community homes or residential settings, or adult day program centers as well. But for the most part, we really try to encourage them to enjoy the flavors, the fruits of their labor. We have music in our garden. We actually have a flautist right now, a wooden flute player, and she works in music therapy as well. And then in this case, we have Kay, who's playing the acoustic guitar for these ladies, and they really appreciated hearing the music in the backdrop. Nothing too hardcore, just very gentle and soothing. And a chance for them to start singing while they're doing their gardening. We have this space for creativity. So not only do we garden, we actually did some watercoloring. We do every so often some art activities, art on plein air. We do some poetry writing, nature journaling. And in these group sessions, it's really about a chance to build communication, patience, coordination, understanding yourself in an environment with others around you. So an external awareness, having a chance to laugh and to share stories, to reminisce. And in those groups, we do these herb drying bundles, and sometimes we make them into sachets, or we just dry them as a bundle, and then somebody will take that home and put it into a vase, a bud vase, and then keep it there for some nice aroma, or into their sock drawer, however they wish. It's about the process. That's what's most important. It has not, we really do, of course, we like to say we want to finish something, but it's not so much about that unless that's part of the goal. Ideally, it's really about the process. So being present is number one. You can choose to be active, or you can be passively engaged, meaning you're just there and you're spending time and watching others do some of the exercises. And in fact, those people usually turn around and start to work with the others. They help in some capacity. It's about enabling and empowering these individuals. They teach us as their, teachers. They also teach us, and it's incredible when there's a reciprocal relationship. Self-nourishment. There is so much self-nourishment. It's not just about eating, but how the experience in and of itself is nourishing and nurturing. So once again, being present each time and every moment and trying to be in the moment. And to wrap this up, I just wanted to share a few of my favorite testimonials. And these are quotes essentially. Gardening gives me new purpose. That's from Kitty. No matter the challenge, there's always ability to garden. Molly. And can I come back to work here? I love that one. And I wake up to come here and to be with the plants. So these are individuals who sometimes deal with depression, or they are trying to find worth and purpose in the community, or they are just trying to overcome a disability or a challenge in their life. And then this was a quote just from the other day, actually, particularly with this plant. That in the fennel, the child pointing to the fennel, looks like something I want to sleep in. So plants have a real impact on a sensory experience, whether it's touching it or just seeing the plant. Gets people to come up with these really wonderful, enlightening expressions and reactions. So I want to say thank you very much for listening in on what horticultural therapy is at the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens within the Lerner Garden of the Five Senses. I hope you have thought of some questions that you would like to ask. And these are some contacts. I believe, Zach, you put these also in the chat box. But again, here they are in this slide. And feel free to reach out to these wonderful resources. The American Horticultural Therapy Network has a website. Our website with the direct area of horticultural therapy. And then if you are interested in learning about HT in your region, there are regional networks such as the Mid-Atlantic Hort Therapy Network, or the Northeast Horticultural Therapy Network, or the Carolinas, or if you're in California, even Canada has, and other parts of the world have horticultural therapy associations or networks. So find out what's available to you. And I am interested if people could put into the chat, if you had even, before today, had you even ever heard of horticultural therapy? And do you in fact know somebody who is a horticultural therapist? I would love to see the numbers filling up in the chat box, and maybe Cynthia can let me know how many people replied to that. Thank you again, everybody.
Well, Irene, thank you so very much. And I have a testimonial from one of the audience members.
Oh,
It says,
great.
this webinar is great, learning good activities to do in your own town. So there you go. That's a good testimony to go along with what you've been writing about. So people are adding things, but there are a couple questions too. To create this garden, was this totally funded by the Botanic Garden, or did you seek grants to be able to help you fund the creation of this garden?
That's a great question. So the initial stage of development was provided by private donors to the botanical gardens to create that specific garden.
Okay.
We do have grants, but a number of our grants are about programs, not for gardens themselves. So most of our philanthropy that we get from private donations goes to specific gardens, and then the programs are generally funded and supported by grants.
That's great. That sounds very much like what we do as well. So
Yep.
thank you. Donations are always well received and
Yes,
welcome.
they are, and no matter the quantity.
Exactly. I agree. There is no quantity that is too small. It all,
Exactly.
or no quantity that's too large either, in case we did that. Well, there was one question here that I thought you might be able to answer. How do you help folks reconcile when they used to be able to do some of these tasks that are now a challenge to them, and or they can't manage them at all? How do you work with the challenges and don't let the negativity sour the activity?
That's a really great question, and I think the fundamental thing is to identify what they can still do,
Mhm.
and direct their attention to that opportunity instead of saying, "Oh, I can't do this anymore." Well, what are the opportunities that you are still, able to do, and what kinds of physical activities or processes are to that person's um, capability, and then there in which we will determine what we can design and modify to make what they used to do maybe possible again, but with these adaptations. Um,
Mhm.
However, we could also just say, well, maybe you can't do this anymore, but you can still do this. And this is
Yeah.
what we want to empower you to be able to do, so that if we're also in a group environment, they can work collaboratively with another person to share the skill set.
That's great. I love the word empower. That really, it takes all the negativity out of it and just makes it a strong assertion that you can do
Yeah.
this, if not that.
And I think, if you recall back there in the beginning, I mentioned it's important to be able to ask for help and to show
Mhm.
your vulnerability, because in essence, there are other people who are very much are in similar shoes, and they
Mhm.
want to share that vulnerability with each other.
Yeah, well put. So we have several people that said no, they've never heard of HT before, and
All
several
right.
people that have worked in the mental health field and started a horticulture therapy program within their other programs. And
Fantastic.
yes, they've heard of hort therapy and did work with hort therapy in a nursing home with the residents at the nursing home. So you have the wide range
Yes.
of
And
attendees.
with that, you've hit a few points. I just want to mention that it's really, as an advocate to the profession and the practice, it's really helpful and imperative that those of who want to utilize the true essence and the capability of horticultural therapy should in fact be trained or work with somebody who is a trained horticultural therapist, in order to really fulfill the capacity and the opportunities, because it will bring it brings our profession to kind of a more um, serious, like people will appreciate that training even more so when they realize that there are practitioners trained to do the work, instead of, we really appreciate volunteers. We really appreciate the essence of gardening and bringing garden activities to rehabilitation centers, but it's just really important to identify that there is a systems approach to it as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agreed. Just like there is for anything in horticulture.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, you have a trained musical therapist, you have a trained art therapist, you have a trained equine therapist.
Mhm.
It's very similar to those. And then I also
Exactly.
just wanted to mention, the Horticultural Therapy Institute is going to be presenting the fundamentals of horticultural therapy. It's the first of their four-part series that they teach, and the fundamentals of hort therapy is happening here at
Oh,
Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens for a 4-day class. And it's, like I said, right here at the gardens, October 12th to the 15th. And we would love to see if any of you are still interested in learning more about it, and maybe how, and particularly if you're in the mental health field, maybe if you would like to adopt the deeper understanding of it, this would be a great course for you. They do
That's
offer
great.
these online, so if you can't travel to Maine, they do have online classes as well.
Okay, and Irene has her contact information right there, so please get a hold of her. You can always send me an email as well, and I'll be glad to share it with Irene. One of the questions that popped up, oh, it's 1 o'clock, but I'm going to ask this one anyway, because I was really curious for this. Do you think there is a difference in felt joy or peace or sense of accomplishment, rather growing for pretty things versus things that produce food for participants?
Wow. I don't know of a study that reveals that accuracy of a response. I think that is a personal motivation. I don't think you can universalize that reaction of outcome. And I think it's also a cultural reaction. You know, it's people who may have food in their life and they grow food and they need to do it for survival, or it's part of their culture more um, uh, more impactfully or more relevantly in their life. And so in that case, I would say the food would definitely make sense. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I hear it's like you have the orchid person who's obsessed with orchids, and you have the person obsessed with roses.
Mhm.
I think it goes through stages.
I
So
agree with you.
perhaps it's somewhere in that vein, but I have not yet seen a comparison of the two. So now you've got me curious, and I'm going to look into that some more.
Okay. Well, great. Well, whatever, we have more answers coming in, but all are so very appreciative of what you've shared with us today, as well as I have. And I thank you so much for introducing us to this topic or re-engaging us with this topic. And I'll share with you the messages in the chat box so you can see what these our audience is saying. They're all very appreciative.
That would be great.
You have
Thank you so
engaged
much.
them.
And again, please feel free to email me any further questions that you may have in the next weeks or 24 hours. Thank you so much, everybody, and
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you.
Cynthia.
Yes, because there are questions I can't get to. So I would love for everyone to contact Irene and ask her those. So you can see the information here. Please copy it down quickly or email me and I'll be glad to share it as well. So thank you, Irene. You have a
Happy
great
gardening,
day.
everybody.
Happy gardening is right. Happy mental health. That's very
Yes.
important. Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.